Good day, everyone. I am Abilene Marie Ama, and together with me is my partner, Jason J. S. Carpila. And for today, we will going to discuss about FAPE means Free Appropriate Public Education. So, FAPE stands for Free Appropriate Public Education. It is a provision in federal law that mandates certain rights for students with disabilities. So, federal law guarantees the right to a free, appropriate public education to kids with disabilities that include kids with learning and thinking differences. So, FAPE ensures that students with unique needs and disabilities are given an educational experience comparable to those without them. FAPE is a powerful legal right for students. Knowing what it covers can help parents and caregivers advocate for their services and supports their kids for their needs. It can also help schools and family partners with each other. The U.S. Department of Education, or the DOE, is the federal agency responsible for enforcing the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or the IDEA, which stipulates the rights of children with disabilities for FAPE. The IDEA team created individualized education programs, assigning different professionals or staff that provide special education and related services for the child. Along with this right comes the responsibilities of staff in ensuring that students receive FAPE. So, what's covered in free appropriate public education? So, the idea states that school districts must offer FAPE for students with disabilities, developing IEPs for eligible students according to the child's unique needs. So, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 protects the right of disabilities in programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance, including federal funds. A person with a disability is defined by Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 as any eligible child that has an impairment, physical or mental, that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Next is has a record of slight impairment and is deemed to have such impairment. Section 504 states that the school must offer FAPE to all qualified persons with disability under the district supervision, no matter the severity or nature of the student's disability. What FAPE requires the school to do? First is provide special education to meet the unique needs of a child. This means specially designed instruction. For example, a student with reading challenges might be taught with a multi-sensory reading program. Next is provide related services to help the child benefit from special education. Related services may include things like speech therapy, counseling, or even transportation. And the last one is provide these services for free at no cost to parents and caregivers.
So for the continuation, I will discuss to you the understanding of components of FAPE. So free. Free stands for students are entitled to a free education. For students with disabilities, this means that they have the right to receive special education and related services at no cost to them. The school is responsible for providing and paying for these services with no financial obligation or cost attributed to parents. Next is appropriate. Appropriate is students also have a right to an appropriate education. For students with disabilities, this may mean they receive an individualized education program or IEP, or a 504 plan that gives them equal access to learning. Next is public. So public is the education must be provided by the public education system. The school creates an IEP that consists of the recommendation from teachers, parents, and others who decide which services and supports each student's needs. And the last is education. All children have the right to an education in the United States. This education may include special education and related services, provided for a free to child and his or her parents. children under FAPE. Idea 65 special education programs and services eligibility through 13 disability categories, also called exceptionalities. These are the following. First is the hearing impairment. The term hearing impaired is often used to describe people with any degree of hearing loss, from mild to profound, including those who are deaf and those who are hard of hearing. So next is visual impairment. So visual impairment is a term experts use to describe any kind of vision loss, whether it's someone who cannot see at all or someone who has partial vision loss. So next is speech or language impairment. So it means a communication disorder such as stuttering, impaired articulation, a language impairment, or a voice impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. So next is orthopedic impairment. So orthopedic impairment is a blanket term for any condition or damage sustained to the musculoskeletal system, including bones, joints, muscles, tendons, and ligaments. So next is other health impairment. Other health impairment means having limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to the educational environment that is due to chronic or acute health problems. So next is the intellectual disability. Intellectual disability is a term used when a person has certain limitations in cognitive functioning and skills, including conceptual, social, and practical skills such as language, social, and self-care skills. Specific learning disability means a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or to do mathematical calculations. Next, the serious emotional disturbance. Serious emotional disturbance means a child or adolescent has a designated mental illness diagnosis according to the most current diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorder, has experienced functional limitation due to emotional disturbance. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. People with ASD often have problems with social communication and interaction, and restricted or repeated behaviors of interest. People with ASD may also have different ways of learning, moving, or paying attention. Traumatic brain injury happens when a sudden external physical assault damages the brain. It is one of the most common causes of disability and death in adults. TBI is a broad term that describes a vast array of injuries that happen to the brain. Next is the deaf blindness. Deaf blindness is a combination of sight and hearing loss that affects a person's ability to communicate, access information, and get around. It's also sometimes called dual sensory loss or multisensory impairment. Next is multiple disabilities. Multiple disabilities means that a person has more than one disability. What causes that disabilities? Often, no one knows. With some children, however, the cause is known. And last is the developmental delay. When a child's progression through predictable developmental phases slows, stops, or reverses, symptoms include slower than normal development of motor, cognitive, social, and emotional skills. Importance of FAPE. FAPE is important because of the following. First, it guarantees the civil right to a free and appropriate public education for eligible students with disabilities. Second, it ensures the child's education in public schools and that their unique needs are met in a manner that will fit their circumstances. And last, thanks to the four critical components described above, it keeps the school districts are provided the framework to stay in compliance. Republic Act 11650, or the Instituting or a Policy of Inclusion and Services for Learners with Disabilities in Support of Inclusive Education Act, was passed in 2022. It requires every city and municipality to have an inclusive learning center to increase the access to education among Filipino students with disabilities.